everyone. I'm Stephanie Crawford, and welcome to another edition of Mrs. Cford Vlogs. I'm so happy to have you here with me today. In my world, school is starting. And one of the favorite things about my job as an instructional coach is that I get to work with teachers in grades K through 12. And one of my favorite things about getting to work with them is that they are trying new things or have questions. We can explore things together. And just recently, last week, I got to go into a high school art teacher's room. She had contacted me and said, I know you love Sketchnotes. I know you've taught Sketchnotes. You've used Sketchnotes in your classroom. How would you feel about coming into my high school art classes, some introductory classes where they're learning about art history and art appreciation, that type of thing? How would you feel about coming in and doing this like introductory lesson to teach them what Sketchnotes are and how to use them? And then we work together to find an idea flood topic to assign these students so that they kind of had this introduction. It was a fantastic class period, 2 class periods. And in fact, another art teacher, her partner, saw it and asked me to come in this coming week and do the same thing. So one of the things that I was thinking as I was doing it is Sketchnotes are actually a little difficult when it comes to a teacher who's not used to doing them herself or himself. That it can be intimidating because you have to keep going back to the fact that it's ideas, not art. And especially in an art classroom, you have to get past that idea. So when I was planning to go into her class, I took the time to make a video that was not too elementary. So I did a video previously, if you've seen it, where I did like a 3-minute introduction to Sketchnotes. And I had made sure that it was appropriate for an elementary audience also. I used it when I taught Sketchnotes to 5th graders. It's been used for 2nd graders, 3rd graders, that type of thing. So I had made sure that it was appropriate for that audience. But since this was going to be my high school students, I wanted to make sure that they felt like it was talking to them too. So I segmented it into a few different sections, into what are Sketchnotes, like why do we use them, then a few examples in my life, how I use them in professional development, or making recipes and that kind of thing. And then I put in examples from students, how they were using them in assessments in my classroom or to keep track of main ideas in books. And then I put how, because we're high school students, how we see Sketchnotes used in the real world, like in the business world and everything, and gave them places to look on social media to find how they're actually used. So what I thought was you might be struggling with how to present Sketchnotes to your students as well. So this video is 8 minutes long, around 8 minutes long, and again put together to have those different segments of Sketchnotes. And what I did was after the video, we talked about different elements. So on the board, the whiteboard, while they had a piece of paper in front of them, I had them make an icon library. So the icon library had your lines, because the way to make it less intimidating is to talk about how really all your shapes, your pictures are just lines that go on a walk. So we do a straight line, a triangle, a square, a circle, just to show that everybody's capable of doing that. And then we add on, like, how would you show an idea? Oh, a light bulb? Well, look at, you can just do your circle, your line that went on the walk as a circle, and then add the little pieces underneath to make it look like the light bulb, the filament inside, and you've done it. We do a couple like that. The camera is good because even if it's not a traditional camera, it's a phone. They can get behind that. They know that. And it's still those shapes. Okay, so when you do a few of those, then I ask them to like find their own icon to represent family. And that's when we talk about how stick people are okay. It doesn't need to be like real beautiful people. I ask them to find their own word that they want to have an icon for. So it might be travel or something like that. We do school also, so that they're building their icon library. And then I ask them to make 3 different containers that they would feel comfortable using, so that as they're taking notes, it's not I have to pick which design is best. They're just used to doing that. 3 different arrows that they like the best, that they feel comfortable using, and 3 different fonts. And again, when I'm modeling this, I make sure that we know that the fonts can be like all capital letters, and that's okay. We talk about how sometimes the font could just be really becoming the picture. So if something is tall, I might write the word tall. And in that way, modeling it for them. So you watch the video, you do this building of the icon library, and then I find that it's really helpful to give an idea flood as an assignment. so that they can start practicing those things, and tell them you need to have at least one container, at least one arrow, at least one type of font, and get them thinking about it and see what they produce. All right, so if you haven't used Sketchnotes, there's your way to get it planned out for you to introduce it to your students and to have something meaningful come of it. Don't do it just once. You do your introduction, and then you need to make sure you revisit the Sketchnotes. When are you going to use this? Make sure the students know the purpose, and make sure you know the purpose too. It's not just a one-day activity. So here's your introduction of how you do it. I'm going to include in this video the 8-minute video for you to use as well. So that way, if you want it, you have it to show to your class as well. All right, thank you for joining me. I hope you are having a fantastic day, and I hope that I will see you next time on Mrs. Cford Vlogs.
Sketchnotes are a form of visual note-taking. They're used in education and even in the business world. The reason that they're effective is because they allow you to use both sides of your brains to make visual connections. This is also known as a form of visual literacy. When you are using both sides of the brain to engage in your note-taking, it's proven that information sticks better. Now, these can be done digitally or analog, so by hand and with pen and paper. Any way you do them so that you are actually making the connections through text and images or icons, you will have better information retention. One of the key steps in Sketchnotes is to remember that they're ideas, not art. One of the ways to make a quicker process out of sketchnoting is to have a visual library. That way you're not concerned so much about how pretty it looks. Now, if you love art and you love seeing how the colors go together and what icons you can make, there's nothing wrong with that. But remember that Sketchnotes isn't about that. You can make beautiful things in your Sketchnotes, but the point is that you're connecting both sides of information, both sides of your brain to retain that information. So we do this by using things like containers, which can help us separate our information as we're taking our notes. We also use things like arrows that help direct us to different places in the sketchnote. They don't have to be a chronological order. Your containers and your arrows will help direct you to the next step. Unless you're producing these for someone else specifically, that was your job as a visual note taker, then it's okay for you to have things that make sense to you. Sometimes fonts are also used as a way to increase the level of use of both sides of the brain, because the fonts can help differentiate between ideas. When these elements are all combined, you get different forms of sketch notes. What you're seeing here are some sketch notes that I've taken when I've gone to conferences for professional learning. Now, what you'll notice is they all look different. There was never two that looked exactly the same. Sometimes there's a certain style that sticks, that feels right for that information, and sometimes it's just whatever feels right for that particular information in the moment. Even when sketchnoting things that happen during the day, it's still about information. They can be used to record recipes. This is more professional learning here, where a tomato was an analogy that was used, and so that became the container on the page. Look at the images that are coming across and see what is it that you hate or that you like that you might replicate in your own or that you would change. Again, the sketch notes are for the person making them, unless your job is professional sketchnoting. So when you are asked to sketchnote in class, to take notes, you are trying to retain the information. You're trying to make a sketch note that will make sense to you when you come back to it, that gives you all the information you need. When you copy notes off of a board, you probably don't go back to those notes very often. Or once you've used them to study from, you're done. and you don't return. That's the same thing with me as an adult. When I would go through a conference and type a lot of notes, I wouldn't go back to those notes ever. But a sketch note is easy to go back to. It's easy to see how you've segmented your information and highlight the key points, the things that really need to stick out. In these assessments that you're seeing, I could have easily asked for a student to write an essay, but what I was looking at wasn't whether they could write an essay for this particular skill. It was whether they could pick up on the key elements to compare and contrast. Same thing with sketchnoting main ideas for a story. It's all about how you record those. Sketchnotes aren't just for the field of education, though. So if you look at Twitter or even Instagram and look under sketchnotes, you will see a lot for education. But if you go to hashtags for visual notes or scribing, you'll see that sketchnotes are used in fields all over. You'll also see that they appear in multiple languages because people are using them all over the world. For corporations, there are people that actually come to conferences and sketchnote their meetings, and they do this live. So while the person is talking, they have to try to strategize where the information will go. They have to take their icon library, their style that they've developed, so that they're not thinking too long, because it's ideas, not art. But when you're doing it for your job, it does have to look nice and be understandable to those that are watching it. So if you look through some of these hashtags, you'll see just how much sketchnoting is used really on a daily basis, that's put out there on social media even. You'll also find examples if you search through Sketchnotes hashtags of students in college that use these for their professors. The main thing to remember is that it's ideas, not art, and that what you're doing is helping make that connection between both sides of your brain so that the information will actually be better stored and you'll have better recall with it when you really need it. We'll look at a few more examples here, and then it will be time for you to give it a try.